So let's say you've been creating content, you've been getting subscribers to your newsletter, you've been getting people downloading your white papers and case studies and lead lures, all of the marketing things that make inbound marketing great. Now let's say you want to take your show on the road. Let's say that you want to throw an event. And let's say this event's going to be in Nashville, Tennessee. And so what you want to do is let all of your subscribers and followers and people who have interacted with you know that you're going to be in Tennessee and that they need to come to your event. Problem is, you never asked them where they're located. So you've got this long list of contacts that you want to segment by location, and you don't know where they're located. Well, when somebody fills out a form on your website or maybe through one of your ads, one of the things that gets logged is their IP address. And you can actually take those fields and populate other fields using them and then segment your marketing lists based on those fields. And I'm going to show you how to accomplish that using one workflow to populate every single one of these fields. So let's move over to HubSpot and we'll take a look at that. Before we get started on actually creating the workflow, I want to show you where some of these properties exist and where to find them. And so for that, I'm in my demo portal. These are all fake contacts, but all of the principles here remain the same. So if I go into one of these contacts and I click on this guy here, and I see that this person has submitted a form. Here, I'm going to view all properties so I can search for these. But if I look for the city on this guy, it's not there, but the IP city is. Same thing if I look for the state. If I look for the state on this guy, it's not there, but the IP state is. So whenever that form was submitted, regardless if we were asking for it or not, HubSpot is going to log the IP address and then the associated city, state, and country. So let's go into workflows and create the workflow that we're going to use to populate all of these things. Now, once again, to get to workflows, we'll want to go to automations and then workflows. And then in the top right, just click the orange create workflow button. We're going to create one from scratch here. There is no template for this, and it's going to be a contact-based workflow. This is going to apply to contacts. And so click next on here. Okay, so the first thing we're going to want to do is name our workflow. I'm a big fan of being descriptive in names of workflows because it's really easy to create a bunch of workflows and then forget why you created them in the first place. So I'm going to call this one set location based on IP address. And then a description, I have one copied here. If a contact has no location property set, this automation updates the contact's location properties based on their IP address. Now, one important thing to note that I put in here is if they have no location properties set. If they already have location properties set, let's say they filled out a different form where you did ask for the city and state, it's not going to overwrite those things. That's an important part of this because if you already have their information, you're not going to want to overwrite it with different information that may not be as accurate. Okay, now let's set up our trigger, and the trigger is going to be based on an event. So I'm going to click when an event occurs. I'm going to scroll down to property value changed, and then I'm going to search for the IP state as the property value that I'm looking for. So let me type that in, IP state region. I want that to be the property that I am basing this off of. Now it can be any of the IP based properties. I'm just using state and region because that's the starting point that I'm using on my workflow. But I'm going to say is known and done and save. Okay, next what we're going to do is create an if-then branch for it to check to see if the property already is populated for states. So on this, I'm going to select branch on my workflow, and it's going to be and or logic. Branch 1 is going to be state is known. And then I'm going to add the criteria that the contact property state /region is known. I'm going to add another branch here, and is state is unknown. So basically, if the state is known, we want this thing to end. If the state is unknown, we want to populate it with that IP address. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to CRM and I'm going to set property value. And it is going to be the contact, current object, state region. And I'm going to take that enrolled contacts property of IP state region code. And I'm going to save that. And what that will do is if the state is unknown, so this person does not have the state property filled in, it's going to set that state region to the IP state code / region code that it comes up with when it checks that IP address. We don't just want to have their state populated, we have other information too. We've got their city, we've got their country. Let's go ahead and populate those things. So here's how you do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start here by cloning this action and all following actions, and then I'm going to place them here. And then I'm going to do that one more time. The reason I'm doing this is just to save myself a little bit of work and make it so that I only have to create this once and then just change a few things within here. So if I zoom out, you can see I've got a few things where it's checking the state is unknown, goes to another if-then branch, state is unknown, another if-then branch. Okay, so we want these to be city and country. So let me change these following branches here to where it's not checking the state region, that it's checking the city and the country. So going to edit this where it is city. Okay, I'm going to rename this guy. City is known, city is known. Otherwise, you might say, okay, well, why aren't you creating another branch where it says city is unknown and then check for that? Well, if the city is known and we're checking for that, and then everything else is the other branch, then by default, if the city is unknown, it goes to the other branch. So that's why I'm setting it up this way. So we're checking to see if the city is known or unknown, and then this simply, we're copying city and IP city on this. Boom. And then this is going to be country. And then IP country. Code. So that has everything set up. You have your trigger, which is the IP state has changed, and you have all of your workflows that check all these things. Now the last thing to do is if this is known, but maybe one of the other things isn't known, we're going to want to send this to check for the other aspects of this, right? So just because it's done with the state doesn't mean that it's done with the city. Just because it's done with the city doesn't mean it's done with the country. So we want this to actually connect to the other pieces here. And then once country is known, we're good. So that's what your finished workflow is going to look like. It has an if-then branch, checks for the state, then moves to this if-then branch regardless of what happens up here, and then moves to this one, and then it's done. So let's see what happens if we test a contact in here. This Nick Herman guy. Once again, these are all fake contacts that were populated by a tool that populates fake contacts. So don't try to email this Nick Herman guy. He does not exist. Okay, so he would show up because his state is unknown, his city is unknown, his country is unknown, but we have all of these other things. So let's go ahead and enroll this guy and see what happens. Let's start by reviewing and publishing, and we want to manually add this Nick Herman fella. We're going to save it. We're going to click next. We're going to click next again, and we are going to click next one more time. So now to make sure that this worked, let's take a look at our action logs. You can click view and go to action logs to see what happened with this workflow. And you can see Nick Herman enrolled in this workflow and all of the things that happened as a result. And now if I go to Nick Herman's contact record, I'm going to hit refresh on that just to make sure that we're dealing with the most recent data. I'm going to click actions, view all properties, because I don't have these properties in the sidebar. And I'm going to look up his state, MI for Michigan, his city, Flushing, and his country, US. So there you go. Now, if I were to enroll all of my contacts in this workflow that had submitted a form at one point or another, it's going to check for all of those IP addresses and all of those IP, city, state, country, etc. And if there is not already a property populated for city, state, or country, it's going to add those based on the IP properties that exist. So one thing you may notice with this as I'm pulling these up is that it's all lowercase. Now, if you are kind of pedantic about things the way I am, you're going to want your states to be abbreviated uppercase. You're going to want your country to be abbreviated uppercase. This can all be done if you're on Marketing Pro or Sales Pro or above where you have access to workflows. This can be done via a workflow if you've got some time on your hands and you want to go get nuts with it. I've actually created a workflow here. So I've actually, just because I'm a little bit pedantic like that, I have actually set up a workflow where every single state gets checked. And if the state is a lowercase version, it puts it uppercase. And it also sets the country region to the uppercase version of US. So everything is capitalized in the way that you would see it in regular communications. Now, I'll go ahead and provide download links in the description below for you to download images of both of these workflows. So if you want to recreate these workflows yourself, you'll have a point of reference besides this video, and you can go ahead and make those within your own HubSpot portal. So now when you go throw your event in Nashville, Tennessee, you can send all of your subscribers that are in the Nashville area emails about how you're going to be in the area and that they need to come to your event, and everything's contextual based on location. So that's something you didn't have before. Hopefully this workflow helps you out. Don't forget to like and subscribe. My name's Derek. I'll see you on the next one.